In this video, I am going to find function composition. We have two functions here. F of x is equal to 2x minus 5, g of x equals x squared plus 6. We need to find g composed with f of 2. Before we can find the g composed with f of 2, we need to find g composed with f of x. Okay, so what it is, we need to find the definition of g composed with f of x. By definition, by the way, g composed with f of x is g of f of x. That means, let me put it sort of in a diagram here or sketch. So you have two functions. Okay, so you give it an input x. Okay, so let me use x that goes as an input. It gives you an output, which is, by the way, f of x. Now this f of x, by the way, goes as an input to the next function, which is g, and it gives you an output f of g of f of x. That's what it is. So you are putting functions sort of like in a sequence. So output of this function f goes as input to this one. So this is defined as g composed with f of x. Now if you kind of reverse the process, so if you have something like this, and this is your g and this is your f, and you give it an input x, this is gonna spit out g of x, right? Now this g of x is gonna go as an input to the next function, which is f. So f, whatever you give it, is gonna give you f of that thing, in this case f of g of x. So this, by the way, is the definition of f composed with g of x. So now in our case, g composed with f of x is gonna be g of, what is f of x? F of x is, by the way, 2x minus 5. So 2x minus 5. Now g takes as an input 2x minus 5. Now let me go ahead and clarify something here. This is very important for you to understand. G takes as an input whatever is inside this parenthesis. Inside this parenthesis here is going to be the input to the function g. It takes the input and squares it and adds 6 to it. Okay, it takes the input, it squares the input and adds 6 to it. Now if I replace the input by a different input, so if I replace the input x by a different input 2x minus 5, that does not change the definition of the function. By the way, g is still going to do exactly the same thing. What it is going to do is going to take the input, okay, whatever the input is going to square it and add 6 to it. But in my case, the input is 2x minus 5. So this is a very important thing for you to understand. Make sure that you do understand it. Now that I found g composed with f of x, right, which is 2x minus 5 whole square plus 6, finding g composed with f of 2 is pretty easy. Just replace x by 2. Is going to be 2 times 2 minus 5 whole square plus 6, which is, by the way, 2 times 2 is 4 minus 5 minus 5 whole square plus 6 is going to be negative 1 whole square plus 6 is equal to 1 plus 6, which is 7. So g composed with f of 2 is going to be 7. Okay, so that's what it is. Now let me quickly summarize what I did here. Basically, I have been given two functions f and g, okay, and I use the definition of function composition to find g composed with f of x, and then once I find the function g composed with f of x, which is this in our case, I replace x by 2 because I am trying to find the value of the function when x is equal to 2. I hope that this discussion was helpful. Thank you very much.